Go for it.
Yeah, let's see.
If you don't have to say anything. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Covington City Council meeting for Tuesday, May 13th. In compliance with state law, city council special and regular meetings are held in a hybrid format with in-person, telephonic, and virtual options for public viewing and participation. With that, we'll call this meeting to order. And if Krista, if you could please call the roll.
Councilmember Soltis.
I'm here.
Councilmember Porter.
Here.
Councilmember Hartsock.
Here.
Councilmember Harjahausen. Councilmember Simomo.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Mayor Wagner.
Present.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. Look for a motion to excuse Councilmember Hartshausen.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Councilmember has been excused. Thank you. Everybody could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for that. With that, next is approval of the agenda, and one item is I'd like to add another proclamation for National Peace Officers Memorial Day for that. And is there any other changes to the agenda tonight, Regan?
That's the only item.
Okay, thank you. Look for a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda has been approved. So if council could please join me in front of the dais. Here it is. Hey, yo. Yep. All right, we have two proclamations that we'd like to present tonight. And the first one I'd like, Bob, you're receiving this tonight. So thank you for coming up. Bob Livestock with Public Works. I have a proclamation to read, and whereas public works professionals are integral to the infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and flourishing communities, and to the public health and well-being of the people of Covington. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the public works professionals who are responsible for their stewardship and improvements, especially the ones on our team. Whereas the 2025 National Public Works theme is People, Purpose, and Presence, which emphasizes the ambitions, ethics, and contributions of the individuals in the public works profession who are responsible for building, improving, and protecting the local and national systems, structures, and facilities essential to the communities they proudly serve. And whereas we appreciate the City of Covington Public Works Department employees who are honorable representatives of this cause with their expertise and efforts to the service of all of our citizens. Now therefore, we the City Council of the City of Covington do hereby proclaim May 18th to the 24th, 2025 to be National Public Works Week in the City of Covington, and encourage all citizens to join in honoring public works professionals who are dedicated to maintaining and improving the quality of life for present and future generations. And Bob, we'd like to present this to you on behalf of the entire public works team. Appreciate you and everything that everybody does, and keeping our systems, our roads clean, the parks and everything. So everything you've done.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to thank you, Mayor and Council. Like you mentioned, this year's American Public Works Association theme is 3 Ps. Ps are people, purpose, and presence. We all feel council demonstrates exceptional care for its people, whether it's city staff or its constituency. We all feel noticed and appreciated. Feel like our purpose is well defined, and we always feel like our presence matters. Thank you for supporting everything that Public Works does. We especially appreciate the additional help we have with the hiring of Jasmine here. Thank you.
Thank you again.
You did. Think you like each other. Okay, ball on three. 1, 2, 3. The yearning ball.
There goes their bonds.
Thank you again.
We got one more. I'll bet the card. Oh, yeah. HR's not here.
And Adam, like, join us up here, council, thank you for allowing me to, I forgot to, I should never forget this one. To add this, because, National Peace Officers Memorial Day is, May 15th, which is this week, coming up quick. The whereas from the beginning of this nation, law enforcement officers have played an important role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms which are guaranteed by the Constitution and in protecting the lives and property of our citizens. And whereas it is important that our people know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police departments and the necessity for cooperating with them in maintaining law and order. And whereas it is fitting and proper that we express our gratitude for the dedicated service and courageous deeds of law enforcement officers and for the contributions they have made to security and well-being of all of our people. And whereas by a joint resolution approved October 1st of 1962, Congress requested President John F. Kennedy to designate May 15th of each year as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week during which such May 15th occurs as Police Week, in honor of those peace officers who, through their courageous deeds, have lost their lives or have become disabled in the performance of duty. Now therefore, we, the City Council, the City of Covington, do hereby proclaim May 15th of 2025 to be National Peace Officers Memorial Day in the City of Covington, and encourage all citizens to join in recognizing the sacrifice of many peace officers over this nation's history and in honoring them and those who continue to serve our community. And Chief, I'd like to present this proclamation to you and thank you for all that you do, and thank the entire team for everything they do, and just to remember all those who've given for us. Like you said.
Yeah, it's a beautiful memorial in Washington DC with the names of all officers that have lost their lives. They're adding, I think, 180 more names to it today. And lighting some candles in remembrance of those that made the ultimate sacrifice. It's a difficult job in that regard, but we'll all fun for that. But it's a big joy, and it's a very fun job to have. So, appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. 1, 2, 3. It's a good looking group, I'll tell you what. That's true.
Thank you again, Council, for doing that. And next up is our first public comment period. Speakers will state their name, organization, and whether they are a Covington resident. Comments are directed to City Council, not the audience or staff. Comments should be related to city business. Comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to 4 minutes per speaker. For attendees participating by Zoom, click the raise hand button. For attendees participating by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. Once the city grants permission to speak, press unmute in Zoom or dial *6 to unmute by phone. Please note, campaigning for any ballot measure or candidate at City Hall or during council meetings, including public comments, is prohibited by state law RCW 42.17a.555. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to address council this evening? Is there anybody online wishing to address council? Please raise your hand. Seeing nobody raise their hand or approach the podium, we will close this public comment period. There will be a second opportunity towards the end of the evening. Next is approval of the consent agenda consisting of items C1 through C7. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor state aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Next up is our public hearing. Tonight, we have a public hearing to receive testimony from the public regarding the proposed 2026-2031 six-year transportation improvement program. This being the date set and proper notices having been posted and published in accordance with state and local law, public hearing is hereby declared open. And Bob Linscoff is providing a staff report for this item. Welcome.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for allowing me this opportunity. This evening, I'll be presenting a draft of the 2026 to 2031 Transportation Improvement Plan. I'm a one-trick pony on these things. During this time, we would like to share with you the progress on last year's transportation plan, and we'd like to give you the opportunity to provide feedback or make changes. In agenda item 1, attachment 2 of your packets, you will see the draft of the six-year transportation improvement plan map. This draft map should look quite familiar, provides a quick visualization to transportation needs within the city. Oops. In agenda item 1, attachment 1 of your packets, a summary of the six-year tip can be found. The proposed draft prioritization list has slightly changed this year and includes a new pedestrian improvements project. While our Jenkins Creek construction project fell off the tip this year, we have remaining work, which includes the installation of a fish passable culvert and driveway paving. We will be asking council for additional funds in June to complete this work. Construction of the Covington Connector Phase 1, 204th Avenue Southeast was accepted as complete. Construction of the Covington Connector at the SR 18 ramps was accepted as complete. And paving for the Lake Point Boulevard CIP portion will begin next Monday. The actual opening of the roadway is yet to be determined. As far as 256 goes, we were awarded around $5 million in transportation improvement funds for right-of-way and construction. We are looking for construction funding source to backfill the city match of nearly $6 million. Our SR 516 from 185th to 192nd Avenue Southeast widening project is proceeding steadily, approaching 70% design, and right-of-way has begun. Our SR 516 and Covington Way project design is around 50%. We returned our right-of-way funds last year, but then we were re-awarded those funds, even in excess of those funds. Our new addition to our six-year tip this year is our pedestrian safety improvements project. The remaining attachments in your packet include the remaining projects and their descriptions. In the interest of time, I could refrain from going through each project, and I could open up to questions and guidance. I could also provide you with any updates at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We'll ask questions after we do the public hearing. So ground rules for public comment during the public hearing are as follows. When your name is called, step up to the microphone, give your name and state whether you're a resident of the city of Covington. Limit your comments to 4 minutes. The city clerk will set a timer that will go off when your time is up. When the timer goes off, please wind up promptly. Seeing nobody in the audience for public comment on this public hearing, is there anybody online wishing to address this topic during the public hearing? Please raise your hand. Seeing nobody raise their hand, I will declare this public hearing closed. Does council have any questions for Bob on the six-year tip? All right.
No, I just have one question. Appreciate it. Thank you. In this current government state, states looking at huge budget deficit and the feds are cutting back on grants. How is that going to impact our construction projects, and are we accounting for that? And do we just, if we don't get the funding, we just move it one more year down? I know you mentioned something about looking for funding sources. So anyway, I'd be curious how we're planning for that.
Yeah, as far as the federal funds go for design and right away, we don't see ourselves losing those. I haven't heard anything. And then as far as construction on a lot of them, we still need to capture funding.
I can add a little bit to that. Fortunately, where we're sitting right now, most of the things we've used, or we're kind of on the tail end of most of, at least like the construction funds and things along those lines. So that's good and bad in the sense we've used up everything, but we've also built everything. So right now we're going into more of the right-of-way phases of a couple of projects. Actually, we're kind of going into 3 of them between the 256th one, which is the new one, and then the 1128 on 516, and then Covington Way as well. So those are kind of really where the majority of our funding is in those 3 projects. So we feel pretty good with that. It's with those funds, like Bob said, we haven't heard anything in those regards. So and they've been the 2 projects those funds have been obligated and everything, and we're going through that. And the 256 one is a TIB grant. So again, there's no guarantees, but we feel pretty good about those things. But like you said, if we have to, if that would be the case, we would just be having to move our projects back. So.
Okay. Anybody else? I have a question on the SR 516 and the Covington Way roundabout.
Yeah.
So while the state keeps trying to decide if they're going to do 5 roundabouts or not, I mean, they say they are. Do we still move forward with the roundabout for Covington Way?
Yeah,
even if they may not do the other 4?
Yeah, there's a slight improvement with the Covington Way roundabout.
Okay.
And even more improvement when you install the other 4.
Okay. Perfect. Anybody else? All right, so this is just for discussion and any direction. Do you need anything else from us, Bob or Don?
I don't think so. I'd just like to add that the Duwamish tribe commented in the 14-day SEPA, and they just had some moderate risk concerns of archaeological items, and to essentially to develop an inadvertent discovery plan. So
okay, perfect. Well, great. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for presenting. So with that,
Sorry, I didn't realize that. Is that for all of them or just?
that was for, yeah, well, they listed 4,
Oh,
but they just had some concerns.
okay.
anybody else? All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Next is new business item number 2, discuss potential pre-formation costs associated with Timber Lane Local Improvement District. Don and Mark.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As a quick recap, during our 2025 summit, this item was on the agenda talking about the potential of a local improvement district in the Timber Lane neighborhood. We talked about that the cost, we put together a preliminary cost estimate, be around $1 million to do the improvements there. The HOA had asked the city if they would initiate the local improvement district instead of them petitioning for that. They also did a survey, and there was some positive feedback that they got in that. So again, they kind of reiterated the request for council to initiate that. Coming out of the summit, council asked staff to, what would be kind of the costs, the potential costs that would be risks that may not be able to be recovered if the LID didn't get fully formed and go all the way through the process. So basically those pre-formation costs. So Mark and I reached out to some LID industry experts in the field and walked us through a little bit of the cost. Again, it was high level preliminary type estimates, but in your blue sheet, it kind of walks through what those different costs were between survey, title report, some right-of-way, no right-of-way acquisition costs that we're assuming in there because it would be a condition for the HOA to dedicate, appraiser costs, legal fees, also just verifying kind of the engineering estimate. So the estimate that we were able to put together was between 17 and 25,000 for these costs. And again, like we said, it's kind of a high level pre-formation cost. And those could get significantly higher in the next phase as we're going through the formation process. So with that, Mark, I don't know if you want to add anything at this time, or council were able to answer any questions.
Anything? Does council have any questions? Beth?
So is there an opportunity if we wanted to move forward with this to have some kind of guarantee that enough homeowners would be willing to put their money where their mouth is for the rest of it? And or if we made this initial first step to support the community, is there a way to recoup this if they say no, if they change their mind?
And Mark, you can jump in, but from my understanding, that would be the risk. I mean, that if they said no, that there probably wouldn't be a way that we could recoup that.
That's correct. That's the risk of doing the pre-formation activities and paying for those as a city by doing the resolution method as opposed to the petition method.
Debbie?
So is it a legal expectation that the city would pay for those pre-formation costs? Did the city just agree that we would do it, or they asked us and we said we would? Okay, Regan's shaking his head no. It's like,
We haven't made any agreement with them on
Right.
this. This was just
okay,
if the council wanted to do it or we required them to do it.
right. So that was my next question. Is it possible to say we would like to help facilitate what needs to happen, but we can't put the city at risk for over $25,000 and lose that should it be voted down? So is that an option to go back to them and say, if you would like to pay for pre-formation costs, we help?
There are a couple of ways to approach that. One is actually going through the petition method with the homeowners themselves and having them go through the process of getting filing a petition with the council, paying the money for each one of these steps, and then them being able to recoup the money from the LID after it's formed. There's possibility of being able to come to some kind of agreement with the HOA or a different entity regarding payment up front or recouping those costs, but that hasn't been discussed at all with the HOA, and that's just speculating whether that's even a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Sean?
Similar, I was just wondering if we can't I know the community's come to us and they've asked us to do it this way and cover those costs. I think before we'd be doing our due diligence if we did more outreach to the community to say, just kind of gauge what people's support is. So before I'd feel comfortable committing the city to 17 to 25,000, is there, hold a meeting in their community center and invite the community to come in and just kind of take the pulse to see if this is something they're even interested in, because as I understand it, this is just for the formation costs. Then they have to actually pay for the actual improvements, and that sticker shock could get even more so. So I'd like to see a lot more outreach to that community before we commit this, so, yeah.
That's one thing Dawn and I talked to the HOA board about when we met with them is we need to know before we go through this work, what kind of support do you have? They talked about holding a meeting in person, but they get 5 people, right? That's small attendance. So they did do a survey, was it on Facebook, Dawn, that they?
I think it was.
I think they pushed out on Facebook to their HOA community. And do you recall how many responses? I think it was a decent amount.
There was. I'm trying to pull that up right now.
And it was overwhelmingly supportive of it. And I think they did talk about the amount. They had that included in the survey.
Yeah, they basically asked even questions of like, would you, they had the numbers as far as what it would be for like asphalt or even sidewalk costs. And there was even more people that were saying they would rather have the sidewalk be the concrete meaning and the extra cost even with that. So that was part of the survey that questions that went out.
Yeah. So I think without spending another $20,000, that's the best data we'll have. But people tend to answer those questions a little differently when they're actually opening up their wallet.
Yeah.
Right. So everyone would love to have that. Would you be willing to support it? Sure. But then when you actually have to pay for it, those numbers tend to decline.
Yeah.
Okay, so Beth,
Yeah, so I guess I think we're all trying to ask the same thing, but they need skin in the game of some kind. And is there a way that we can hold them to some sort of, you all need to raise at least this amount of money and we won't touch it. We'll do our part, but we need to make sure that people are willing to actually start spending some money on this. Can we do anything like that as a requirement before we commit public funds to that?
So that's the method Mark mentioned about the petition method. So where they have to go through this process instead of the city going through it. There's 2 different options to form an LID. One of them is city, you start it, and that's something the council needs to decide if they're willing to do that. If there's justification for it, if there's not, then the community involved in that LID should be the ones doing it.
Okay, yeah,
and the petition costs about $20,000.
it'd be the same.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
I think a little bit of the petition though too is at least in the front end, you've got the names, the signatures, the people that are coming in with that, and you do see the support that you're asking for in that regard. If they go through that, so you have a better idea if there is people that are willing to, then you have probably a better idea, that it's going to go forward. Because if you think about those $20,000, say it is, that will get rolled into the $1 million that it would cost to actually do the project. So that part would probably be small in the overall cost, but it would only be if it went all the way through the process.
so when the LID is formed, because we did 9901 for the 172nd and Kangley, the property owners, when it's all done, it's sent to them and they pay for it and added to their property taxes. When we're talking the sidewalks in Timberlane, are we talking sidewalks on just the main thoroughfare? Or are we talking on all the side street, not the little cul-de-sacs, but the side streets that are all going through, like where we only have parking on one side?
So the estimate was only for one side of the road. That was the main Timberlane Boulevard from the clubhouse to the intersection, the T intersection there. What is that? 262nd. So that it actually turned a little bit and tied in because it goes around the corner there for a little bit. So it was just on that west and north side on that leg, and then the same road that comes off at the clubhouse, 196. It changes names so many times. So that one that goes back to tie up to the existing sidewalks. That's way back. When you do that last turn, there's sidewalk again back there. So it's one sidewalk or walkway on that road and one on the other one is what that comes up to be for that approximately $1 million.
So we're only talking about the 2 main thoroughfares running, and we're not talking about sidewalks. So when they did that survey,
do we know that they specified that's exactly where the sidewalks were, or? Because some people may not have read that and thinking they're gonna get sidewalks down the side streets like what was from Timberlane Way back to Jenkins Creek Park.
I think they took the estimate and the pictures that I gave them and
Okay.
sent that, but that's what I'm double checking right now. I'll try to find that here in the next few minutes, but I think that's what they showed them,
Okay.
but I'm not positive about that.
I'm sure if you sent it to him, knowing Ryan at the HOA, I'm sure that's what he said. Okay, thank you. Does council have any other questions?
Would we set a precedent if we accepted to spend the money for the pre-formation upfront costs? Let's say we spend $25,000, we help them get the lid started. And then another HOA comes to us and wants something similar, and now we've done it for one. I guess it's a question, but I'm also just voicing my concern that I believe we would be setting a precedent. And why do it for one if we won't do it for another? I don't know if there are other neighborhoods out there. I suspect there are that don't have continuous sidewalks, but if anybody wants to answer yes or no, that it is we would set a precedent other than it's.
I'm happy to answer that. There's no legal requirement that council
Okay.
do this in the future. This is, each instance is up to council whether you wish to, if you go through the resolution method, to initiate the formation of an LID. If there was another situation, it would be evaluated in the same way as what we're doing right now to determine whether this is something council wishes to support. You would be able to make your group decision on that as you see fit.
Okay, thank you.
Christina?
However, in this case, based on what you're saying, if they did initiate and petition to do this, it would look better, from the city that, a neighborhood came, and we didn't necessarily initiate this. I think if Jennifer was sitting there, she would say it needs to get done. And either way, any way we look at it, it needs to get done. But I really would like, everyone wants some skin in the game, but if it's possible to encourage them to petition, that would be wonderful. My one question is, since the improvements would be made on those two main streets, I'm assuming only the homes on those streets would be burdened with that.
A little bit of that would come into the appraisal and that type of thing that we would be going through and seeing that what properties benefit from that. So it would all come down to, if it shows that a property benefits from that, then and that would have to also that the benefit would have to exceed the cost to that property for them to be able to be assessed.
Okay, so we don't know that yet.
That would be that's really part of the whole piece of
Right,
walking
right.
through this.
Okay,
Sean?
thank you.
No, my question got answered. Thank you.
Well, I was just thinking about that because most of the sidewalk area there is not directly linked to anyone's storefront.
House.
Front of their property, it's the sides because it's the main road, which then makes you believe that it could be more of considered a community benefit, and especially since it's along a bus line. One of the roads is along a bus line. Is there a way to split the difference with them?
They
Pay
can't
for
even
half?
get their dues paid.
Split the
yeah,
difference as far as split the
Sure.
difference of the
Like-
pre-formation costs we're talking about here, or the overall cost.
Reformation costs. Since one of the roads is a main bus line, like I could,
I think I think that would probably again go back to the piece of having to talk with them to agree with to do something like that.
okay.
Mark?
That's correct. And because it really comes down to who's benefited from it.
Mhm.
And so we, as staff, don't know what that is until we walk through, until the money is paid to go through the process of having the appraisal done and having the surveys done and walk through all the pre-formation steps. But you are correct that if there is a possibility of approaching the HOA and the property owners to see if they wanted to fund that up front. But again, that has not been discussed with the HOA at this point.
Christina?
Oh, you're just that good. I actually, it hasn't been presented that idea, but I think I can get behind that if they initiated and then the burden of this, pre-formation was too much, then like that's us reaching out and saying, hey, maybe we could split the cost of at least that with you. Versus eating it all and then having no interest from, from them, from the neighborhood. That is skin in the game for me.
The pre-formation costs, if the LID is formed, get wrapped into the LID to be paid back. Correct?
Correct.
It's just the upfront and then it gets paid back after through the.
Yeah, then those pieces, like we said, it would be if it gets, voted down, then those costs would just be outstanding costs.
Yeah.
There would be no one to assess to.
So just for clarity then, if we did the pre-formation cost, did all this work, did the appraisal work and everything, then we would go out we would send notices to each of the affected properties that would be included in the LID, and they would have to respond back to us,
Correct.
yay or nay.
Yes.
Okay, and then, because each property, at the farther they get from the road, is probably gonna be assessed a lesser amount, even if they're all, I mean, I'm still remembering how 9901 was done. And a lot of those properties are rentals as you get in the back portion of Timber Lane. I mean, there's rentals up in the front portion as well. But, speaking personal, since I'm the one that always walks the south side of Timber Lane when I'm doing the litter pickup.
North.
Yeah. No, cause Regan's on the north side. I'm on the south side as I walk. Whatever side I am.
We'll get a compass next time.
I'm on the opposite side of Cedar Valley.
Right.
That's the one where there's the roots and everything and, I've seen kids trip in the morning as they're walking to school. So, okay, so is there any other questions?
If I can also just a couple of things going back, I did pull up the survey.
Okay.
It had 205 responses, and it was asking, did they read what an LID was? They provided them what the LID information, did they read it? 205 responses, 92% said yes to that question. The next question was, should Timberlane HOA work with the city of Covington through an LID to replace problem sidewalk areas? 205 responses, 82% said yes, and 17% no. And then question 3, which type of sidewalk do you prefer? Asphalt, 785,000, concrete, 1.17 million. Google search reveals that concrete typically lasts longer, so they would ask them that or added that information to that. And then they said 80% said concrete to that. But looking back to your point, I don't know. I can't tell from these if they provided a map as far as where they're talking about. So that I can't verify from the information I have.
Okay. Debbie.
Okay, one more question. When was that survey done?
It was, looks like we got the results in November of last year. So it was probably October, November timeframe.
Okay, thank you. And
Christine.
Oh,
Yes.
I'll say why I asked that when we vote. Okay.
Christina.
Do we know that all of those are homeowners, or do we know, or could they have been renters? Did it?
I'm looking here to see if
I can just say from working on a couple of different HOA boards, we don't send information to renters. We send it to the property owners because we don't have an agreement with the renters, we have it with the property owners.
Agree when it's us sending it, but this.
No, I mean, in my private life.
They would, I'm sure that,
Not as a city.
Timberlane would have sent it to the property owners because they're the ones. that pay
That,
the-
that's who's on file, yeah.
And that's who pays the dues,
Mhm.
not the renters.
Right.
And the property owners put the dues into.
So
But it was a
I think we
Facebook.
could safely assume it was the property owners, but
I don't know.
if they have some kind of different agreement that
Right.
I've ever seen.
'Cause
it
it's a
could be
Facebook,
renters.
so that's what takes me off.
Right.
It's like,
And
it wasn't
anyone-
emailed, it wasn't
Right.
directly from the HOA. If you live in Timberlane, then maybe you're on their Facebook page, and regardless of whether you.
They could let renters into that. I don't know. Usually it's just the homeowners,
I would
but
like to.
yeah. I don't
I
know.
mean, this was in a Google Doc that they
Okay.
have, so I'm not sure how it was sent out or whatever, so, but the questions and pictures that were sent to them were through a Google Doc. And
So that would have to be to the email, to an email address, then if it was a Google Doc.
unless there's some link or something, I don't know.
Sean?
You mentioned from that survey, was it 92% approved the formation of the LID?
It was 80,
82.
yeah,
Was that right? I thought it was
Was.
92.
17, working with the. city.
82% said the HOA should work with the city to form, through an LID to replace problem sidewalk areas. So
Okay.
82%.
And you mentioned that if it's approved, those pre-formation costs are covered. I mean, if they really, they have 82% saying they want to do it, they're gonna get their money back anyway. I mean, that's,
If there's
Kind of-
if there's not a group that,
well, but I guess what I'm saying is I don't know if I trust that survey. I don't think it's 82%. I think, like Regan was saying, I think it's easy to say yes when but that would be one way to talk to them too, is saying, look, we're discussing this. You said you got 82%. This should be a no-brainer. It should be easy. But then I think you're really gonna hear saying it's not gonna be that easy. It probably is closer to 55% that then would be willing.
And I think really our next communication with them should be, yes, the city council will cover these costs, or no, they won't.
Right.
That's really what we're looking for
Yeah.
tonight, so they know how to move forward.
Beth?
I mean, the other thing I do want to point out is that HOA has over 700 homes. So if we're looking at only 200 responses, we're talking about only 24% of the homeowners responded to a
Yeah.
positive on it. And I feel like we'd need a little bit more strength behind that. I mean, I don't mind helping, but we just really need to make sure they're in it. I mean, I know the sidewalks definitely need to get replaced. And if we had money at the city, I'd say, let's do it, but we don't. So, I mean, unless we want to add it to our too.
So before us,
Yeah.
council is to have staff go back to Timberlane to say that Timberlane needs to do the pre-formation costs. The city will do the pre-formation costs, or the third option was to split. Is that correct?
Can we?
Okay,
Oh, I don't.
so because that would be a conversation that the city would have with the HOA board on that. Is that correct?
What's that?
Is that correct?
Those are three options for paying for it, but there's another.
Right, but that doesn't answer the threshold question of whether council is interested in the petition method, or where the homeowners initiate or council initiates. And then, I guess the question could be asked first, whether how the costs would be paid, but that would determine resolution versus petition.
Okay, I thought the petition was included in the pre-formation costs.
The petition versus resolution, petition is initiated by the citizens.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's just the
It's
process.
just the process.
I think if I'm understanding it right, if we do decide to split the cost, then it doesn't really matter which
Mhm.
which process we go
Hmm.
through.
Okay. Because if we tell the HOA that they need to go through it, they have to do the petition.
Correct.
If we as a council say that we're going to do it, then we just move forward with it as a resolution. Or we ask them to split it. That's the three options.
Correct.
Okay. Joe,
I would say I'm in favor of going with the split because it puts skin in the game for both of us. And I think we tell them here's the three options. This is what we think is the most fair is we split this and then we see where we can go from there. But it's also the one that makes most sense because after the end of that, it doesn't matter which way we go. We can either go with petition or resolution. And I think that just makes the most sense. And it means the Timberlane's really ready to go for it because they've been complaining about their sidewalks for years. And I was like, okay, we're ready to put up some of this money to get this started. And the city goes, okay, well, it's kind of that grant idea to Timberlane. It's like, you're applying for a grant, put up half the money, we'll put up the other half.
Debbie,
The reason I was asking about when the survey was done is, then between October and today, there have been a lot of changes in our economic climate, including increase in property taxes. So I've seen a couple of things happening in HOAs that we talked to. They're firing their management company because they don't want to pay that fee. And in my own HOA, I've seen people making some really strange decisions because they just flat can't afford to pay anymore. I mean, for something that we need to have in the neighborhood, and people will not raise it by, $25 a year because they just won't pay another dime. I think it's more probably impacting the residents in Timberlane than, where High Point is. But the reason that that's important is while that survey had a lot of gusto, today, will that same number of people want to vote to start a lid? I would be in favor of splitting. I would definitely not be in favor of the city taking on the cost and the risk for the whole amount. So does that give you my option? Okay.
Sean,
Yeah, similar. I'd be in support of the split, so.
okay. Beth,
I would be in support of the split as well.
Christina,
Ditto.
And I presume we're talking about a 50-50 split?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
yeah, I think it needs to be done between the HOA and the city, splitting it. And then, if we split it, do we still need to go out for a petition then?
Well,
Well, that's the question I was going to ask back is the going back to the HOA board, they felt there would be more possibility of it going through if we initiated that. But are we going back to them and saying it'll be 50-50, but we'll go through with the resolution method and we'll move forward? Or is it 50-50, but they still need to do the petition to make sure there's 51% of property owners that are interested?
Sean,
A couple questions on that. If we initiate it, are we assuming the risk of that? Who's this lead
That's
spot?
still- That's still the 50-50. I mean.
Okay, so, and then, petition, does that actually mean they have to get 51%, or is it a legal petition where they say we are agreeing to do such and such? There's two different kinds of petitions.
Right, the petition itself, it has to clear a certain threshold.
Okay.
To get it before council,
Yeah.
and then it goes through the actual assessments
Mhm.
where you establish how much each parcel or square footage. There are a bunch of different methods for calculating how it will be paid. Then you go through that process and make those final determinations, and then there will be a final vote.
And so if they don't clear the bar on the petition, that'd be pretty clear that they're not going to support it. Anyway, I mean, I'm trying to figure out why we wouldn't do that, other than it takes a little more effort. But seems to be a way to ensure that there's that.
And that's the way that we presented to them. That would be but they're the ones that pushed back and
Right.
said,
Well, they got to do some work. Yeah, I mean, that's really, they're gonna have to do some outreach. Yeah.
And if it went to the petition, then there's not any of those pre-formation costs till after they get
Mm-hmm.
the petition piece in there. So that risk, is deferred.
I guess if I'm thinking out loud and we assumed it and went in and let's just say cost the entire amount 25,000, I mean, what would the other parts of the city think if we
Yep.
just sunk that cost and it failed horribly? I mean, it's tough, kind of like what you were saying, the economics have changed since October. People are rightly scrutinizing every cent they're spending and asking the community to do that as well. And yeah, I think it makes sense to have, it's going to take some more effort, but I think they need to show us that they've got 51% support. And then, we'd be willing to cover half that cost.
So if they show that they've got 51%, then there's no reason for us to split the pre-formation costs, because
Oh,
that
yeah.
pre-formation cost would automatically be rolled into the LID. So they went forward with the petition to show 51%. Then these costs don't take effect until after the
They would likely still have to put up the money up front and
okay.
pay for that, but it would, if assuming that after the final assessment and roll is taken, then the vote does approve the LID, then those costs would be recouped through the assessments. However, the assessments are apportioned between.
I think we should make King County pay for that, because they're the one that created the problem when they built it.
Yeah. So a 50-50 split through the petition method.
Is that what council, is there consensus for that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Beth,
My vote hasn't changed, but is there an opportunity down the road if we incorporate other communities? I know Timberlane owns the road, right? They're responsible for it. But I also know that there's Covington Park residents that use it, Lancaster, you've got all the, other ones too. At some point, if we came into public funds to help offset that, if they decide to got the petition, they decide to do it, we get started on it, they decide to form a lid, and the cost is $2 million or whatever it is, say for that. Is there a way for us to help offset that in the future if funds became available, or other communities wanted to do that too, or?
Is there a gift of public funds that you do?
I mean,
If you're asking whether you can expand it in the future, it would.
to help other people pay for it that use it, not just Timberlane.
Well, that would go into setting.
That's part of the process to determine that.
adjustment.
Thank you.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
that's exactly what you determine. You determine the area that it will be benefited.
Mhm.
And you look at what the fair market value and the difference between what the benefit will be and the fair market value of the property. There's that delta. And then from there, you can make a determination which properties are going to be contributing what. But it would be very difficult to pull additional. I don't think it would be possible to pull additional. Actually, let me state it more clearly. We would not be able to pull in additional properties to contribute outside of what's originally included in the petition.
I think what Beth's asking is if we have some additional funds we want to put toward it, can we do that?
I don't know the answer to the
Yeah,
question.
that would be an interesting one.
I know that came up before when we were talking about this, is that Timberlane isn't the only community that benefits from this street, which I guess splitting the 50% in the beginning makes sense because other people are using it and that other road is mostly just. It's all Timbers people use it, Timber Hills. I mean, people go for walks all the time. We go running up to the water tower. I mean, we see people all over the place there, right? So it's not just Timberlane. Is there a way to get others involved in it?
That's through the assessment
Yeah.
process.
But I thought the assessment was just for
No,
Timberlane.
the assessment looks at all those that benefit.
Everybody,
from that
even if they're not in Timberlane,
project.
it does the whole.
If it shows that it benefits that and the benefit exceeds what their cost would be, then it can be included in the assessment, but that would be part of that initial boundary that would be determined. It may be more local to Timberlane just because of the size of Timberlane. You may, if you get too far, there may not be benefit that it's going to show to the property Cause it's basically having a show that it's a benefit to the property itself. Cause it's like increasing value on the property because of this, is how that works.
Got it.
So you bring up what you brought up, just. So there's a school there. Does these sidewalks qualify for safe routes to school?
So that's been a little bit of the challenge on this, is just because they're owned by the HOA, the walkways, and not the city. This wouldn't be
Okay.
it wouldn't be even a discussion if we own them. We would we would have already fixed them for one, but two, that would be funding that we could use for that. We have that on our list to look, because we just did the Safe Routes to School funding, I think, is a 2-year period. And so I think it wouldn't be until next year, if I remember right, before it would come around again, because I think it was last year, if I remember, but it might be on the odds. So it could be 2027. But those would be things that we're looking into to try to see if there's ways we could partnership and say, hey, if they give those to the city, can we utilize the funds, for that? Will they become the city's property? Would that be allowed to be used? So we're going to continue to look for funding for this regardless of the route that they go. I mean, that's something we've been trying to do, is try to find grant funding and ways to do that. So we'll continue to do that. I just don't know if we'll be successful or not, based on the fact that they technically own them.
Then in several years, when Lake Point opens and runs through on 69th there,
Be a big.
right by Cedar Valley, then that becomes a walking path from Timber Lane out into Lake. So is there still consensus to go back to HOA saying that we wanted to split it 50-50 and we can't do it up 100% upfront? Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. You need anything else from us?
And just clarify, through the petition method is what we're going back to them and saying, council would like you to go through the petition method. If you get that, if it comes back to above the 51% bar, then this council is willing to split those pre-formation costs. Is that what we're going back to them?
The HOA would get their 50% of that the pre-formation cost back to them once the LID is formed.
Right, but there still could be, so think of it this way, you still go through the pre-formation, they still have even though they got the 51%, once the assessment happens and everything, they can still vote it down at that point. So it still would be, whatever those costs are still going to come in after you've done all that work. So there will be a risk. Those same costs that we're talking about will come into play regardless. It's just going to be a matter of, they still have the ability to turn it down.
Okay.
So.
Right. Just to make an additional clarification, the initial petition method is based upon the majority of the area within the proposed district. And then the actual vote will not be based upon the proposed area. It'll be based upon the assessments. So just because the petition has 51% of the area, it does not necessarily mean that the most benefited properties, they may be the ones that are most opposed, that would be paying the most for the LID.
Basically, the message is that council is not comfortable paying 100% of the pre-formation costs at this time. Am I correct, council?
Yes.
Okay.
With the risk.
With the risk.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right, next is new item business number 3, fourth quarter financial reports. Casey.
You, Mayor.
Need a microphone?
Yep.
There we go. Please feel free to nudge me along. I'm sometimes not real coordinated with moving that and speaking at the same time. So
Okay, property taxes. So just to start off with, this is your fourth quarter report. I literally put my last entry in for last year a couple of hours ago. So I do not have final ending fund balances for you, but I do have, these are the revenues and expenditures, and then I'll bring back how our ending fund balances ended for last year. But I would be shocked if they didn't all increase, but 99% sure everything increased. I just can't tell you what the dollar amounts are at the moment. So for property taxes through fourth quarter, the city received a little over 3.2 million. And just as a reminder, our levy for this year was 3,245,000. So it looks like we've almost collected all of our levy. But what that does have in there is if I receive revenues from a prior period, so from 23, 22, 21, those are reflected in there because I'm allowed to recognize them as revenue when I finally receive them. So out of the 2023 levy, I still have about $40,000 outstanding, and that's a typical levy balance for me each year. It ranges from about 25,000 to about 40,000 each year. And like I said, I've collected about an additional almost 30,000 from prior years. For the real estate excise taxes, to go up. Go. Through fourth quarter, we brought in 228.9% of our budget. We budgeted low, seeing some of the mortgage interest rates, and we budgeted only 600,000. We ended up bringing in about almost 1.4 million. There were 51 new home sales, 238 existing home sales, 3 commercial sales, 2 building sales, and 7 lot sales through December. And the average existing home price for an existing home, was $666,700. And the average new home price was a little over $901,000. And it was interesting, our over 2023 prices, the existing increased by 48,000 and the new home prices decreased by about 80,000. Oh, and then just another side note, I just did this a few minutes ago, but our REIT, we finally have enough REIT cash balance to technically pay our debt service off as of the end of April. So I'm going to be exploring whether or not I have any prepayment penalty on that, and that would save me about $200,000 in interest. So I will keep you posted on that. For retail sales and use tax, our total collections were at 108.6% of budget. Our budget was 5.7 million and we brought in a little over 6.2. Comparing each category against 2023 shows that our retail came in lower by 0.4%. Construction was higher by 25.4%. Food services were higher by 2.3%, and all other categories increased by 3.6%. We have our couple of other sales tax that we collect. We have our HB 1406, and again, that's dedicated to our Vine Maple Place contract. We have our HB 1590. Again, that brought in a little over 734,000, and it goes for the skip construction and also to pay for a Darren or community care program. And then we have the street fund sales tax, which brings in 735,000. And again, that's the one that we just, as of January of this year, increased by the 0.2%. So you'll see that increase next year or this year. Sorry, I'm working in multiple years. For utility taxes, fourth quarter is up by almost 400,000 or 13.8%. Our total collections were 119.5% of budget. And part of that reason is we have the water and the sewer that weren't in the budget, but are in these numbers. The water came in at what we were estimating and what Covington Water had given us as an estimate. Sewer, I'm going to be conducting an audit on the sewer district. They don't know it yet, but I'll be calling them as soon as I'm done with my financial statements, because the number that they gave me was half of what came in was half of that. So I just want to look at their numbers and try to figure out where that discrepancy was. And then the difference in swim. So swim looks like it was down from 23 over 24. And that's only because we had the one-time BPA funds that we received in 2023. So it looks like there's a big difference, but it came in at what we were anticipating. So then I added the business and occupation tax. Sorry, I lost my mouse. There we go. I don't love how this looks on this page, but I had to fill some space, so this might move around in future reports. But for business and occupation tax, we ended up collecting 978,000 for last year. I will mention that we hired our new tax analyst, Linda. She came to us from the city of Renton and is doing a fantastic job. We've already narrowed down our past due collections for our major commercial retailers that were late in reporting. We're down to, I think, like 2. So she's really hustled and brought in a lot of money for us. So it's been great. And you can see that as we anticipated, retailing is our highest category. So I'll start adding to this as the years go on. You'll start seeing more and more data. And then for our interfund loans, we have 4 interfund loans currently. Thank you, Don. The first one for CIP 1019 expired at the end of 2024, so you'll see that one drop off. The one for CIP 1201 and 1127, we just extended that one to 2027, but those funds have currently been paid back for CIP 1201 or the 204th project and are only currently being used by 1127. And then we have the CIP 1202, which is the pedestrian bridge project, and then CIP 3008, which is the Jenkins Creek Trail. All right, so for the general fund, how it ended last year, operating revenues were at 103.2% of budget. It still looks like it's a decrease over 2023, but in 2023, we had the ARPA funds. So again, if I take out those one-time funds, we actually saw an increase over 2023 revenues. For total expenditures, overall, we spent 95.7% of our budget and expended a little over 20.6 million. And just a couple that I'll point out for you, not that I like to draw attention to the ones that are over budget. One of the first ones is the city council, and that is only because of the council salary study that was conducted and the salary increases that were made. For executive, there was some election services costs that we saw that were double. We received 2 years worth of billings in 2024, so that's kind of skewed our numbers for election services. For human resources, we saw an increase in human services, and yeah, I'm just not good at staring with this mouse here. Nope. But we did see a decrease in the special projects. They offset each other. So we ended up, just for administrative purposes, putting more of the human services contracts that we had contracted for in the human services department. So it offsets each other. So you'll see that there's some overages in that department, but we're under in the special projects department, which again, the special projects, this will be the last year that you see that. Won't be in there going forward. For central services, you'll see that there's an increase there, and those are due to some subscriptions that we centralized in the central services department. Things like Adobe, Microsoft, we kind of took those out of each department and just put them in one centralized spot, so it was easier for billing information to maintain. For parks maintenance, that was a little bit over, but there was to the turf project, and we received a grant for that project. And then for the aquatics department, the increase was due to payroll increases, but it was offset by increased revenues. They brought in an additional about $100,000 over budget in their revenues to offset those. Basically, as their programs increase, their revenues increase, so it helped offset it. So for public works, we've got 2 funds in public works, street fund and the swim fund. For the street fund, total operating revenues were at 106.1% of budget, so they came in higher than budgeted. Total expenditures, excluding transfers out, were at 92.7% of budget. So again, under, so that's great. And I always have this little paragraph here that talks about kind of the subsidy to the street fund. And that really is getting less and less now with those additional TBD revenues that are coming in. So you see that there's still money coming in from the general fund, but we're able to transfer a large portion out. Basically, all the sales tax that comes in for the TBD for the first 0.1% goes straight back out to the street overlay program. So it's great to build up that fund. And then the swim fund, the total operating revenues were at 113.4%, and total expenditures, excluding transfers out, were at 93.7%. So again, under. And then I will mention that we're still seeing some of the TBD vehicle license fee revenue trickle in. Just because we ended it on January 1st doesn't mean that people didn't pay. If they didn't pay their tabs in December and they ended up paying them in January, they still are assessed that fee because it's based on the date of assessment. So we've received some of the first few months, and it's starting to trickle down to hardly anything now. And then development services, total revenue is at 124.9% of budget. It's an 8.9% increase over 2023. So we were happy with that. We're seeing that start to go in the right direction. The number of permits for single family residences are at 60 compared to 27 and 23, so more than double. For all other permit categories, there were 398 permits issued compared to 376. And the types of permits that are in that number, that 398, are like mechanical, plumbing, tenant remodels, those type of things. Total operating expenditures came in at 87.6, so again, under budget in their expenditures. For aquatics, recreation, and cultural arts, again, this is where I mentioned the aquatics revenue came in higher. It was at 119.9% of budget. And the recreation and cultural arts also came in higher at 112.2% of budget. Their operating expenditures, again, for aquatics, like I mentioned, it was a little over budget. That was due to payroll. And recreation and cultural arts actually was under at 96.8%. And then just to mention in the aquatic center splash counts, if you've noticed that the 2024 splashes are trending down a little bit, I got some additional information from Ethan and Landon on that. There was some unplanned facility closures due to weather. Last year we had that bomb cyclone, and we had some other things. We had facility closed for I think an additional 5 days unplanned. And then also we're also seeing some decreases due to the implementation of the resident versus non-resident pricing. And Ethan and his team are looking at doing some targeted marketing this year to try to get those numbers back up. So for cash and investments, our total cash on hand as of the end of the year was a little over $42.6 million. It's an increase over 2023. The local government investment pool earned 4.6% in December of 2024. And we currently have 35.1 million invested. Our investments outside of the LGIP total 6.9% or 6.9 million, excuse me. And I will mention that we really hit some of our investments at the right time. We've really started to see those rates kind of trickle down the last few months. And we were able to lock in most of those above 4%. So we're in pretty good shape for the next 2 to 3 years. And interest income alone, last year we brought in a little over $2.1 million. So very excited about that. Accountants like money. Okay, so for the CIP program, again, I added a little bit of information here, a little additional information because I had dropped off the interfund loan that was at the bottom of this. So it gave me a little bit more room to add some more stuff. The city has collected a little over $307,000 in mitigation fees, and those are our traffic impact fees. We've brought in $247,000 in park impact fees last year and $166,000 in property tax parks expansion levy revenue. And that is a levy that has allowed us to do a couple of projects like the turf project last year that we did. We contributed $100,000 that we received from that levy to that project. Just in the CIP fund, we brought in $555,000 in interest income. That is unallocated income that we could use for a future project. So if we have, let's see who's looking at me, we can use that for, just to help fill some of the gaps. So that's great because that's unanticipated. I think I budgeted $130,000 and we brought in $555,000. So that's great. Last year, we did $4.19 million worth of grant revenue reimbursements. and $2.8 million in transfers in from other funds that help support those projects. A couple other things for our bond watch. As of December 31st, our current balance is $2.6 million left on our bonds. And again, like I mentioned, we currently have enough in our REIT funds to cover that. And the Public Works Trust Fund loan was paid off this year. Our street fund, or our street impact fees, our current balance is a little over 2 million. And our park impact fees, our current balance is a little over 419,000. And that's all I have. If anybody has any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Casey?
We're gonna do it.
Debbie.
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank all of your teams for doing an amazing job of helping to keep our revenues up, but more importantly, your folks have been able to keep expenses down. Now, some of that wasn't, anything that any one group did, but that's a really good picture of how we look compared to last year. I mean, we may have budgeted a little low on revenue, but I think it puts us in good position as we go into budgeting for next year. I feel really good about where we sit financially. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Beth?
So with the additional interest revenue, like that's a substantial amount, right? I mean, which is awesome. It's great to be able to say that our team did that, but what, will we just be looking at maybe this is more for Regan, like, is this something we'll be just looking at for this upcoming budget cycle to figure out, like, maybe allocating more for street overlay or some of the other things that need to be done in the city, or where does that, or save it or what? I don't.
What we'll end up doing probably is we generally wait until I have my final ending fund balances. And then Regan and I meet going into the budget season and kind of look to see whether or not we want to reallocate some of those into our existing reserve balances. Okay. And then we generally just bring that forward to council.
Okay. Great.
That's typically with excess revenues that we didn't project that we receive, we allocate them to our reserve funds.
Anybody else? Casey, thank you very much. Thank you to your entire team, but also thank you to the entire staff. Not just finance, for everybody participating, but Casey for consolidating everything. And it's a pleasure to work with your team when we come in to do bill review also. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, next is new business item number 4, SR 516 pedestrian bridge project. Is that you, Don? I don't see Delaney. Delaney is online. I didn't see her here on my right-hand side. Welcome, Delaney.
I snuck up behind you or in front of you, I guess. Well, thank you for having me, Mayor and council members. It's good to see you all. I do have some visuals to go along with this discussion tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And it looks like I do have a visual of you on my right-hand side of my screen, but during this presentation, if you ever want me to pause to ask a question or discuss anything, any concerns, just feel free to interrupt me and we can go from there. Okay. So just a little bit of a reminder of where we're at in this project. Back in January, we had our consultant, Matt Boffman from COE, come and present to you on some different design alternatives for our pedestrian bridge. One of the pieces that took a majority of the conversation was around the bridge approaches. And so that was the elevator design versus the ramp design. We talked a lot about the pros and the cons of each of those. The biggest cons that we had with, and I say we as in all of city council staff and consultants, the biggest downsides with the elevators were around the safety and the maintenance. And then the biggest concern around the ramp design was just the large stall impact. So we left city council that day with the direction to proceed with our recommended design, which was the ramp approach. But that was with the contingency that we talked to the business owners and the property owners to get a feel on their feedback of the project and those impacts, and then try to work on a win-win solution for those. So we have since approached these property owners, and as you all know, this is a very car-centric area. So as we somewhat expected, those conversations were a bit tough and the property owners were not very receptive to seeing all that stall impact being had. So what we kind of did at that point was we took their feedback and we went back to our drawing board and we tried to rearrange our designs so that we could condense things a bit more and try to lessen that impact as much as we possibly could. And so that's a little bit of what we're going to show you here tonight. So just a reminder of our existing conditions. I do have a laser pointer that I will start here. So we had decided on the west site, and that western site kind of centers around this Jamba Juice, Applebee's, Chipotle, Key Bank. And so this will just be our point of reference. I can come back to this slide if we ever want to see this visual again. And the first design that I'm showing here is our condensed ramp design. We did bring the ramp design to the property owners to start, and it was with their feedback that we started to condense this a bit more. Also, when we spoke to you back in January, we did get the approval that you were good to move forward with a 10-foot ramp width rather than a 12-foot ramp width. So that dimension was reduced. Another piece that was reduced here was this midsection right through there. This was previously an amenity zone, so just a landscaping strip. And instead, what we've done is we've just minimized that, so it's a bit of a tighter turnaround. This makes it a bit tighter for bicyclists coming around that corner, but it's still doable, it's still manageable, and that 10-foot width is still comfortable for bicyclists and pedestrians alike. So the biggest pro here of doing this, this condensing is that we are able to keep all of our parking on the west side of the ramps for both the north site and the south site. So while we do still have quite a bit of impact through these aisles right here, we are still saving a significant amount compared to what we had originally proposed here. Excuse me. Another thing that I just wanted to note here is that these designs are very high level, they're very preliminary. So as we've been working with COE, it's been a lot of, what if we were to shift this 10 feet this way? What if we were to rotate this? We have not asked them to go into in-depth engineering to determine specifics on details here, just because we are still at a high level point. So there is the potential that if we did move forward with one of these designs, there's a possibility that the engineering results in potentially changing things such as the driveway configuration, the potential of reducing by a couple more stalls. So that's just something to keep in mind as we're going through these. And so with these impacts, like I said, there are still reductions. We have about 12 stalls being impacted on the north side and then 15 stalls on the south side being reduced. This next one that we have here is our condensed elevator design 1. So what we did here is we reduced the size of the elevator shaft just slightly. And so the interior cab there is still a 6x10, which is very comfortable. You can fit a bike, you can fit multiple people. But this is actually the minimum dimension that we would want to go with that shaft because we still need that distance for the stairwell to get up to a vertical clearance. And this staircase is still at a 10-foot distance, which is very comfortable. But even though this is a quote-unquote condensed design, we do still have impacts. So we are shifting these medians up. At a minimum, we would be reducing the stall count by about 5 stalls. Coming down to the south side here, we do have the potential to shift this footprint further north, closer to the sidewalk. But even with this smaller footprint, we would still be impacting that drive aisle. We would need to look into circulation requirements to see if we could shut down that drive aisle or if we would need to shift things and potentially take a few stalls down here. And so the reason that we kind of came back to this elevator design is with the property owner's feedback in mind, the #1 priority being lessen the stall impact. So we really wanted to take this from all different angles, and we did go through the reduction of the ramp, and now we wanted to look at the elevators. However, we do still have the concerns from ourselves and from the property owners with safety and maintenance. And then the other internal concern is that this design is less likely to be used by bicyclists. So this is the last design that I will be showing here. But this is our condensed elevator design too. We have very creative names. But we have that same shaft dimension, that 6 by 10, and then we reduced that staircase width down to 8 feet. But the biggest difference that you'll see here is that this footprint has been changed from the east side of the driveway over to the west side of the driveway. And this is an interesting one because this building here is the Applebee's, but this is the back of the Applebee's. So here is the trash enclosure. And then we have 2 stalls here for parking, surrounded by quite a bit of landscaping. And these stalls are not dedicated for employees, but they are commonly used for employees. The public is welcome to use it, but I think that it just looks slightly less inviting. So it's not commonly taken by those dining at Applebee's. But the other thing that you may notice with this design is that it does drop in the middle of that driveway there. So this would likely have the effect of turning this driveway into a right-in only. So there would be no exit at this driveway. My gut does tell me that as a business owner, you're more concerned about getting your clients to the parcel rather than out of the parcel. But I'm not suggesting that we close down all of the exits here. We actually do have 2 other exits very close in proximity here. And I'm going to go back to our map really quickly. So we are looking at this driveway right here. So this would be a right-in only. And then we have another driveway with an exit right up here to the north. And then another driveway exit right down here to the west. And so if you were to analyze this a little bit more, if you were, say, coming from the east direction and you were to pull into this right-only driveway, and then you were ready to take off, head back to the east, you wouldn't be exiting out of this driveway anyways, because this driveway only takes you to the west. So your option would be to come up to the north and exit out here, come down to the signalized intersection and head east from there. If you're in this parking lot and you're needing to go to the west, then you would cut through this little area between Cold Stone and Applebee's and then come out this very close in proximity to driveway. That would be increasing the traffic in between these 2 businesses slightly. We would just have to look into how much traffic is that actually building there. But realistically, there is no backtracking for anybody that is in this parking lot and having to exit, or that typically exits through this driveway. So coming back to this, excuse me, this is definitely our most condensed design that we have here. It has the most minimum impact. The biggest positive that we have here is that with this design, we are only impacting 1 parking stall through here, so that we're 1 parking stall on the north and then the same potential impacts on the south, so up to 2 stalls on the south. So this is a smaller design, but it's the smallest amount of impact. So it's a big positive in that direction. So talking about property and business owner concerns, as I mentioned before, the reduction in the stall count was the biggest concern coming from property owners. We did present the ramp option to start, and so that was a bit surprising for them to see. We did present the elevator option directly after, and that was easier to swallow for property owners. However, they did specifically note that they would rather see an increase in their stall count rather than a decrease in their stall count. So there is still a priority that they're putting in the number of parking stalls that they have. If we're talking about the elevators, the property owners did have some specific concerns around the safety and the maintenance. Their biggest concerns around these were just that having elevators are going to attract some riffraff, will attract vandalism, and they fear that the speed of the city addressing these issues would not be fast enough for their preference, and so that business owners would end up taking things into their own hands. These are, in a way, policy issues where we could address this with installing some high-tech cameras. We can increase police activity through here. So there are ways that we can mitigate these concerns. It's just something that would take some more effort and discussion. The visibility of storefronts was another concern that the property owners were bringing up. A couple did mention that they specifically purchased these properties because of the high visibilities from the roadway. I think for this, we do have ways that we could get creative and think a little bit outside of the box. I don't know if that would be potentially adding some signage closer to the roadway, potentially putting something on staircases. Obviously, the ramp option does have a bigger impact for that visibility of the frontage, and going down to an elevator is much more helpful, but there is still a structure where there wasn't a structure before. So it is a valid concern. And then the last major issue that property owners were bringing up is just having revisions to driveways and drive aisles. My opinion on this is that property owners and business owners, if something is working, they don't want to see anything fixed. So things are going good for them. Why would we change their driveway configuration? Why would we change these drive aisles? But also realistically, if we are going to get a pedestrian bridge in our downtown area, we won't be able to do so without impacting parking stalls or a driveway or a drive aisle. There has to be some give and take somewhere, and there's just no way to avoid all of those. But as you saw with those other designs, we're looking into ways where we can mitigate this, such as if we're going to close half of this driveway, where are our other exits? If we are looking at closing down this drive aisle, what are our other options for driving through? So there are ways that we can work around those issues. And then the last piece would just be talking about our options moving forward. So we can move forward by utilizing the rest of our funds. We can choose one of these designs, push it forward. At this point, with what we have remaining in our funds, we could probably bring something to about a 15% level of design. And that would be great. Another kind of parallel option to that is we could utilize the rest of our funds, but not necessarily select a design, but do a little bit more digging of the backbone so that we could get support for when in the future we want to go after future funds. So that could be pursuing or figuring out how often is this parking lot really truly full? How often specifically are these two stalls full? How many people are really taking a right turn out of this driveway? So going through and kind of finding the information that we would want to have in our pocket for when another grant comes available that would push this project forward in the future. And then the other option that we would have here is that we could release the funds that we have. This project or this phase that we were awarded funds for was a feasibility study and pre-design. So there is the opportunity to say we completed the feasibility study and we determined that it was not feasible to design a pedestrian bridge in downtown Covington at this point in time. The thing to note there is just that it does become difficult to come back in the future and ask for more funds to come back and complete this project if we are returning funds now. So it would have to be a bit of a drastic change in order for us to justify that. That could be something like the acquisition of a property or a business shutting down, or potentially a bit more development of our greater downtown vision that would allow us to say, okay, well now a downtown bridge really does make sense here. And so that would be our justification that we could use there. But it does get more complicated if we say, here, we're returning these funds, and then later down the road say, okay, now we want some more funds. And I know that was a lot of information, but we are very eager to hear your thoughts, your concerns, whatever discussion you'd like to have that will help you help us determine what direction to move for the rest of this project.
Okay, I'll just start down here and work around. So Joe.
I think we've done our due diligence to look at affordability of this, and I just don't see it as feasible at this time. Maybe 10 years down the road, maybe sooner, but I don't see this as a feasible option for us, just because of location and property and taking away the parking spots. Because as we've said earlier in our pre-meeting, we're getting off the road and walking around the city is still not a huge thing that we're doing. And we're trying to make it better, but I don't for parking. Those are the places where we're going to park to go and do the walking around. And if we're going to take away the parking spots, even if it is, we do change it to having an elevator and reducing that, it's still not going to be great, because I do foresee our officers being called out to that particular area to take care of situations and set elevators. So as much as it pains me to say this, I think we've checked the feasibility and we've determined it's not feasible. And I get that returning money to the state, and they say, well, next time it's going to be harder for you to get money. It's like, we're not sure there is a next time for this. And when we do go back out for it in 5-10 years, there could be different people handing out the money and forget that we asked for it the first time. So there's always that chance. There's a hope. I'm always optimistic that someone will forget things.
Thanks, Joe. Debbie.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to just kind of reinforce what we talked about last time with the safety issues with the elevators. Yeah. I felt very convinced after that discussion that elevators were not the route to go because of the drug use, the sexual acts, the violence, and I think Chief gave us a lot of good examples. So to me, sacrificing safety for more parking spots is not the right thing. But then a different problem or a different thought process that came up that impacts this is Beth and I were speaking to an HOA group 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about the roundabouts. They wanted to see what was the latest plan for the roundabouts. And they weren't so opposed to the roundabouts, but some of them have lived in areas that have roundabouts. And they said that where they've seen it work well is where they've changed the in and out points for businesses. So instead of going through a roundabout and you're going to go roundabout and end up in Jamba Juice, maybe it eliminates that entrance into Jamba Juice and routes it somewhere else so that the entrances and exits move based on where the roundabouts are, and it makes things flow better. And I had reached out to Regan after that and asked, is that something that we could look at or have WashDOT look at when they do more in their study? And I guess that's something that we could ask them to look at. So that's a thing that's coming down the road that's an unknown. We don't know how long it will take to get those roundabouts. And we don't know that anyone will have an appetite for moving traffic entrance and exit to accommodate the best flow. But it is something that could happen. And I would hate to think that we put a bridge up and then we're kind of stuck with, you can't change the entrance and exit because it impacts where the bridge is located. So I have not heard a lot of good feedback about the pedestrian bridge, either from homeowners associations, businesses, or residents, but I'm just one person. So that's just my thought right there.
Okay. So you're saying to give the money back with what's left, or
If
well, I
we,
can come back to you on that.
okay, thank you.
Sean?
Yeah, I would echo what we've already heard. I didn't. In our earlier conversations with the council, we weren't real comfortable with the elevator option, but it's totally understandable that our businesses are concerned about parking access. So I'm not feeling there's as Joe put it, a feasible option at this point in time. Now, I guess I want to hear more about how much funding we have left, and knowing that we probably won't pull the trigger at this time. Are there things we can do if situations change down the road? That I always hesitate to give money back when we could do additional pre-work, with the understanding that we're probably not going to pick one of these, but I'd be interested, how much do we have left and what additional work? I think we heard we get 15% or something pre-work done, but
We are about 60% of the way through our budget at this
Okay.
point.
what was the total budget?
What was that? Yeah.
800.
That was, let me check, $759,000 to the consultant.
Mhm.
Allocation.
800 is the total piece, but there's pieces for WashDOT paying for them, and then I think there's staff time and part of that. So of the consultant, it's like of the 800,000, is it 759,000? Is that what you said, Delaney?
Yeah.
And so you'd be 40%, we'd be roughly giving back 40% of that 759. So what is that? 280, 280, 300?
About 312,000 at this point.
Okay.
The other option is there's no requirement that once this is done and we've spent these funds on the study and up to 15% preliminary design, that we do anything
Yeah.
Right.
after that.
Yeah.
So we do have an option here if council chooses the elevators or the ramp to continue this work and finish out with the money we have, and then we can keep that
Yeah.
study on the shelf and we've got it for when we want to pull it off.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just, I would go with that. So be more comfortable with that. Let's spend the money on as much research as we can do, but with the understanding we're unlikely to pull the trigger on developing a ramp at this point.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Beth?
I'm kind of torn about throwing, well, to everyone's point about not probably pulling the trigger anytime soon. I don't want to say throwing good money after spent money, but it's a lot of money, right? And it's still taxpayer dollars regardless, but I like the look of the condensed elevator one. I know, elevator one. Yeah. I guess I wonder, as I'm thinking about safety, because I know that is a big concern, and the operational cost of an elevator. Are there any other, can we lump in when we do our evaluations, the cost of additional patrols? Do we close the elevator down from 11 PM to X time? People aren't going to be using it in the middle of the night, most likely, except for the people that probably shouldn't be. So are there ways that we can, if we decide to go with an elevator option and mitigate some of that risk? And maybe I don't know if that's a question for you, Delaney, or Don Chief.
I mean, I would say that some of the things that we've talked about is trying to, if we went with this route, those would be some of the things, especially it would be in the next round of funding for fully designing, to dive into probably the details of that, which would be how could we mitigate some of those things like you talked about. Also, if you're delaying these types of things with design, is there different, what has changed since now and then? So some of those things would be what we would be looking at. Like we talked about, is there technology, some of the cameras, what's it tied to, where would they be communicating with, that type of thing would be some of those pieces that we talk to or look into if we got kind of the next round of funding for design and that type of thing, is what I would see probably those types of details coming out in the full design, I would say. I would just like to add
I'd just like to add that locking the elevators may not be a possibility because of ADA requirements. We would probably have to close the stairs as well as the elevator if we went that route.
Okay, thanks for that. Thank you.
Christina, thanks, Beth.
Yeah, thank you. There are so many variables here. We have big, beautiful plans for the future of Covington. For how walkable it is, first and foremost. And then for the fluidity, is that a word? Of where the cars are going to be transported if we do get our roundabouts. There's just, in my opinion, there's too many variables up in the air to be able to commit to a bridge and the location of the bridge, because I think things will change as soon as we become more walkable. Then we'll see where we are more walkable, and the needs will change, and hopefully the safety aspect will change as well. And maybe we'll, be in a better, more beautiful world where we don't have to talk about locking elevators. But I don't want to jump the gun on the decision of the bridge, but I also think it would be valuable to use the funds and make assessments about the safety of this bridge. And if that's, Dawn, you talked about the details of what it would encompass, but that's like for the next stage. I'm wondering if we could use those funds and make the assessments. Delaney, you talked about cameras. If we could look into that and see what that would cost, how that would cost, there's maintenance for those as well. Who would operate them, who would monitor them. I just think the temperature of the city will be changing in the next, I don't want to give money back because it does make a statement about, and we will, they'll be put to good use, just something that we can pick up a little bit further ahead than we would be in the future. So that's, I would like to see the rest of the funds used for things pertinent to the city. And
can I just clarify or make sure I understand? Are we thinking that kind of Delaney mentioned this, like more general in the terms of it would benefit whichever route that we get? We're not picking a specific one, but like she talked about, maybe we're determining how often, what is the traffic patterns for in there? What are the, the amount of parking in there, those types of things that could be utilized to no matter what direction we go in the future.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what we're looking?
That would be my opinion. I also, I know we kind of we were given a presentation. We said, these are the locations possible for a bridge. We chose the one we would like, but now it's not penciling. So maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and say, hey, maybe we need to move this a little bit south or a little bit, east or west. Everything looks different now that we've chosen a location. Maybe that's not the right location. Maybe when we become more walkable, it'll be more, close to walk. Essentially, I think, yes, if we could get more data on both cars and people, that would be my liking.
I completely agree with what you're saying about understanding where the traffic is going to be in the future. For the location purposes, part of the analysis of choosing this site was taking those other impacts of those other parcels into consideration. And I would say that this site actually had some of the less impacts as compared to those other ones. I would say at this point, it probably wouldn't be something that would be worth digging too deep into, but it's something that we could provide for you guys to see those impacts for.
So, I didn't like the ramps from the beginning because it took up too much parking space.
Yeah.
I happen to be, and one of the things that was brought up is that the seniors preferred the ramps over the elevators. I happen to be over at the senior center on a different subject, and the bridge came up. And they were adamantly against the ramps. Because when they're tired, they are not gonna be able to go up and down a ramp. They have a hard enough time going up and down the hill from the senior center to getting over to Fred Meyer, and that's pretty flat. They preferred the elevator, even though they understand the safety concerns of an elevator getting stuck. So if a bridge was being built, they would prefer the elevators. Going back to the elevator designs, you showed I was intrigued by the second one, but the problem with that is where those two cars park in the mornings, those cars are moved because that's where the 40-foot semi truck pulls in to unload the food when they get deliveries. So that would be pretty hard having that elevator there. Unless I'm looking at the picture wrong when I drive by in the morning, so they block that whole driveway when they're backed in to deliver. So I agree with Beth that elevator design 1 would probably be better.
You're saying it's this direction.
The truck backs in parallel to 270, yeah, just like that. But they're closer to 272nd when they back in.
Okay, I see.
So, and they might just be parked that way for when they're unloading the truck to deliver, because they're pulled all the way over towards facing Jamba Juice when they're parked in there to unload. So they block that whole entryway. So I'm personally, I have no problem continuing the study, but I would say going with elevator design 1 because it's the least impact on businesses. But I know that study would just be, we wouldn't be going out to build. It's just finish the study with the funding we have and then taking that for a later date when something does become available, if changes happen because at one point in our downtown plan, we show that Safeway and that Covington Square Shopping Center would potentially, if the developer or the property owner wishes, would actually have Safeway up against Kent Kangley. So that's a completely different format, and then you wouldn't need an elevator because the bridge could go right into the building and use the store's elevators to go up and down. So I heard you said to move forward. Beth said to go ahead and use the funds.
I'm fine with that. I can go either way, yeah.
Okay. Sean, you were moving forward. What was your?
Yes, and I would agree, because it doesn't commit us to go forward with it, but at least we
To finish the
finish
design.
the design study.
Yeah, so that we know where we're at.
Yep.
And Joe, are you comfortable with that?
I think it's a waste of time to go with something that we're not even feasible in the next decade. I think it's a great idea. We probably could use something like this, but it is and yes, the state gave us money, but it's a waste of time to try to keep going on with this design because there's not a chance of this ever happening by the time my youngest graduates high school. And I think this is something that we are still 20 years down the road, I think, but things could happen, things could change, but I think it's a waste of time to keep trying to design this because when we finally do come up with a design and if we're ready, if we do find a way to do it, we're going to have more safety concerns on this because not only will we have to have officers patrolling that spot day and night, we're going to have copper getting stolen out of that elevator. That elevator is going to be down for the count more often than it's working. I'm just think it's a waste of our time to keep going.
Question about Delane. So the funds, does the consultant have all the funds, or we're paying the consultant as the work is done?
We pay them as the work is completed.
Okay, so then there's no penalties.
Correct.
But there's consensus to move forward. with funding? Okay. So there's consensus to move forward,
Great.
not
Yep.
to build, just to finish the
Yep.
design.
Does that work for you, Delaney?
That works. Thank you for the direction. And if it makes you all feel better too, we only have this issue because our Covington businesses are so successful that people want to come to them all the time.
Right. Yeah, I would be very adamant against taking any more parking away.
Mayor Wagner, point of
Yes.
order. You inferred that there was a consensus, but I don't believe there was. I believe Councilmember Smomo.
Okay,
What
there was
is it?
a
I would
5-1.
Take a vote.
Yes, a 5-1 vote.
Yes, there was a 5-1 vote. Thank you for clarifying that. That clarify, does that work for you, stating it that way? Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Delaney. All right, that brings us to new business item number 5. Appoint a voting delegate for the 2025 Puget Sound Regional Council General Assembly, which is on Thursday, May 22nd, in person at the Seattle Convention Center from 10 to 1. I do sit on that board, but I am not able to make that. I will be in Tacoma all day for something else. Is there anybody else that can make that meeting for the assembly?
I'll be
Okay,
in Europe.
so well, you definitely won't be making it.
That's
I would
not-
not want you to.
Call in.
If I could do it virtually, I can do it, but I cannot be there in person. So,
Does it have to be a council member?
yeah, it has to be somebody on the council.
I will be right. 1 second.
Okay. All right, so we won't have a voting delegate there at this time.
I think Christina's.
I can do it.
Yay.
Okay,
Thank you.
you sure?
I nominate Christina Saltis.
I second.
I third.
You nominated yourself, so,
Sure did.
okay,
Yeah.
as long as you're,
Okay.
all right. So all those in favor of Christina being it's been moved and seconded to appoint Christina Soltis as the voting delegate to represent the city of Covington at the 2025 General Assembly. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations,
Me.
Christina. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
I think Beth and I have done it.
I was going to do it, well,
No, but you did it 1 year. Didn't you? No?
I
Okay,
I zoomed in
okay.
to just watch it, but I didn't have a delegate.
I've been doing it quite a bit. Okay, that concludes new business. Christina, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right, looking at future agenda items, our next council meeting is on May 27th, the Tuesday after Memorial Day. And we know that you won't be there. And so we have reports of commission. We have several new business items and appointments to commissions. And then with that, let's move into council staff comments. Oh, before that, future business reminder, Monday night, May 19th is our Tri-City meeting here in council chambers.
Week from yesterday?
Pardon?
A week from yesterday?
Yeah, we missed it on May 19th. Yep. Okay, now let's go into council staff comments. Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. On Thursday evening is the end of the Community Academy. It's been well reviewed so far, so we've enjoyed it. So that'll be on this Thursday at 6 p.m. That's all.
Great, thank you. Yes.
Adam can't not talk about that pursuit and whatever it is, STAR, whatever, what is that technology that was used?
The Star Chase.
Yeah,
So
and
we
how
have
does that work?
So there's a pilot program to the sheriff's office where a small container is put on the push bar of one of our patrol cars. So there's 3 in the southeast precinct. One of them is in Covington because our officers actually go do things. So they thought they would actually be used. They're correct. Our officer has the most uses so far. Deputy Crookston does. What it does is it shoots out a device that sticks to the car and emits a GPS signal. That GPS signal can then be traced with any other deputy who has the computer, pull it up and track it. The one that we had, that we posted on Facebook, we star chased it. It went closer into Maple Valley. Saw a patrol car dumped into a driveway, tried to get out and pretend like they lived there, where the deputy then went and arrested the driver. So it worked the way it's supposed to, which is they park and get out, or just park. So it's a fantastic technology. It doesn't always stick to the car, but it has worked quite well.
Is it a magnet or is it a?
No, it's like this really sticky, gooey thing. It's not magnetic, because the magnet will dent the car.
Yeah, yeah.
That. We don't like that, so.
Interesting.
That like Ghostbusters slide.
Yeah. Green.
There's other agencies that have this thing called the grappler, which shoots out from the front of the patrol car about 15 feet. You have to get really close, and then it basically throws a net on the back tires. It's scary, but pretty fun at the same time.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to the entire team, Adam, for everything you do. Not with that, just that one, but all the other cases that have been coming up. So thank you. Good job. Ethan, you online?
I am online. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nothing from me tonight.
Thanks, Ethan. Don?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
You? Selena? Is not on. Okay.
Yeah, she's in Italy or something.
Oh, that's right. She's enjoying herself. Casey?
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
Just briefly, I wanted to revisit something I said about the LID formation petition. Under the two different ways that an LID may be formed, the petition, which is done by 51% of the area, or a resolution done by council. I was mistaken in how that can be challenged after the fact, or how it would be formed. Under the petition method, if 51% of the area says, yes, we want this, then after the public hearing, it could be challenged by a lawsuit to either challenge the validity or the authority to create the LID. It's under the resolution method only that once the resolution is passed and there's the public hearing and ordinance to form the LID occurs, there's a protest period, and if 60% of the assessed value protests, then the LID fails. Okay. So there's only the second bite at the apple. Or there's that bite at the apple if it's done by the resolution method. So either way, the people will get to have a say either up front or after, depending on whether it's the petition or resolution. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear for council. And if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them.
I appreciate that clarification, because that gives the public the right to come back.
Right.
Before or afterwards.
For the resolution method, it gives that 60% check after council has passed it. Otherwise, both options can be resolved through litigation. But once there's under the petition method, then there's 51% of the area, then it's only through litigation that could be resolved.
Thank you.
Or challenged.
So I do have a question on that. Then with the petition, is there a time frame for how long they have to get those votes? I mean, and do they expire if they take 2 years to get 51%? Does that make sense?
Oh, are you talking about how long it takes for them to get the petition?
So how long would they have to get 51% of the votes? And let's say it takes 5 years. Do those ones at the beginning say, "Hey, I've changed. I don't recognize that vote anymore"?
I believe, and I can confirm this, but the petition they would gather the signatures and they would need to get 51% before submitting it. I don't think there would be a time limit.
But they could sit on that for 10 years if they wanted to.
That may contribute to potential challenges in the future, but it's more likely to be successful if the petition is moving forward quickly. But I'd have to confirm if there is a time limit on that or not.
So just to be clear, petition method, 51% passes, there's the public hearing and all of this. But if somebody wants to file a lawsuit, is that against the city or against the HOA?
It'll be against the city for the validity and or the authority of the city to form it. Because at that point, the city will have passed an ordinance to form the LID. And it will be under the city's authority then to defend that against a lawsuit, because at that point, it'll be fully city action to move forward with the assessments.
But I thought if it was a petition, doesn't. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right.
Apologies for failing to get that to you earlier.
Okay.
In better news, there's no executive session tonight.
Thank you. Regan,
Nothing for me, thank you.
thank you. Krista,
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
thank you. Christina,
Had I have seen our financial reporting first and then made the decisions, I probably would have changed my vote for that, by the way. Yeah, great meeting with CETUS and the chamber. Just love the people that, one thing that I really pick up from CETUS is like passion, not just for the businesses, but a passion for, I mean, all of our commissions are wonderful and very passionate, but there's just this level of passion that like, we'll do anything, give us the next project. They're always ready to go, always ready to knock on doors, do the steps. And I just so appreciate that. I think we have a gem in a very big stack of rocks. And I am very, very excited to represent Covington at PSRC. No, but truly I am. It's an honor, and how can we go unrepresented? We're so awesome. Thank you to all the staff. Thank you, Council.
Beth.
A lot of great brainstorming at the meeting tonight with CETUS and the chamber. I think, like I said, I think there's a lot of opportunity that we have, and so maybe some untapped, any little thing we can do here or there to bring more awe and amazement and wonder and spark additional and experience in our downtown area. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can come up with that. Great to see the Makers Market. That was always, and luckily it didn't get rained out because there were some times out there I was getting drops on. Chamber Third Thursday happy hour is on this Thursday at Ristretto's. And so looking forward to connecting again with some folks there. Just as a reminder, the Purple Light Night event for this year will be moving forward on September 27th, so the last Saturday of September. So reaching out to a few folks, Mayor, if you want to be a speaker.
Yep, count me in.
And also along the same vein there, Dawn, the Domestic Abuse Women's Network, is having a May It Forward event at Green River College on last Thursday of May, and it's a networking and a way to help create additional camaraderie. So there might be an opportunity there to attend and continue to network with them so that they can help support our events too in the city. Gosh, that's probably about all I need to say. I thank you for representing. I'm going to miss the Tri-City meeting, but we'll be back in full force for our second May.
Thank you, Beth. Sean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last Puget Sound Regional Fire Authority meeting was canceled. So the only update I have is tomorrow night at the Maple Valley Wilderness Lodge, there is a wildland urban interface town hall meeting, opportunity to learn about wildfire risk in our community, some of the resources that Puget Sound Regional Fire Authority can bring to those types of fires, and then simple things that people can do to reduce their risks or prepare for those types of things. So I plan on attending tomorrow. Public's invited, so hopefully some of you also can make it tomorrow as well. That's it.
Thanks, Sean. Debbie.
So I'm gonna miss that too. And the happy hour, the chamber happy hour, by the way, is partnered with by the Covington Rotary. So it's a dual organization event. So I am leaving tomorrow morning. I'll be gone for 2 weeks. I'm gonna miss the joint meeting session and the wildfire event and the next council meeting. Also a skateboard meeting, but I believe that Bob is going to try to be there. So as my backup. I wanted to let you know that last Saturday, I wasn't able to go to the Makers Market because the post office food drive was last Saturday, and it's the largest food drive that the storehouse is a recipient of. So unfortunately, the post office every year declines in their messaging. You know, you used to get a postcard in the mail, you used to get a blue bag in your mailbox, you know, the week before. This year, many people didn't get a postcard. A lot of people didn't get a blue bag. So we went from 8,000 pounds last year to 5,900 pounds this year. And that used to be the single source of canned and dried goods for the year. So we've no longer been able to rely on that. But a really cool story about like the most amazing lady in our community. Her son is a postal driver, and the postal drivers, it's optional for them as to whether or not they will pick up that food. So they are not required to. And I guess in some neighborhoods where the post officer won't pick it up, people just have to take it themselves to the food bank. But there's a woman in Covington whose son is a post office worker. He will not pick up food. So she goes around on his route on Saturday morning in her truck. And I got goosebumps because just meeting her and hearing she does it, not for her son, because she thinks he's, you know, he should be doing it, but she doesn't want that food to go back in the house or go to waste. And so she loaded up her own car, her own truck, and brought it to the storehouse. So we, you know, we tried to do a, you know, big cheer thing for her, and just what an amazing person that is. So next year we'll see what happens, but yeah. So that was lots of volunteers. It was very well organized. You still, I think you beat us on this number. So the post office
Doesn't
food
matter
drive
as
still
long as-
doesn't touch you.
As long as the storehouse gets food,
Yeah.
and I will be setting up another Mayor's Day of Concern. I need to coordinate with Stephanie for June or July,
Okay,
not on the 14th.
all right. Thank you.
Joe.
I have PIC tomorrow. I will be chairing the PIC meeting tomorrow night. I have not received yet my email that gives me my working script yet, so hopefully I get that before 7 o'clock when the meeting starts, because if not, it's gonna be a real quick chairs report. So, but we will be talking about the, the PIC agenda has not been posted online. It's buried in my email. So I've looked at it like 3 times and it's still confusing to me right now as to why it's not online. But we'll be talking about sewage rates, and we will also be talking about the different committees. We will be appointing a new member to the RTC and a new alternate to RTC. There's still openings on 3 different committees. I will, after tomorrow, I'll make sure to get that out in case anyone wants to join some extra committees. Saturday, I went to the grand opening of our new market over there by Walls of Books, C-Mart. It is, I was really enjoyed walking around the store before we did the ribbon cutting and after. I will say that I don't think I'd ever seen cinnamon bun Oreos before, and I will probably be going back this weekend to get them. And lots of great things. I'm looking forward to their success. And then I did go to Maker's Mart, and I wish I was able to buy something from every booth because it looked like they were all had amazing things. I did get some barbecue sauce though, and I'm looking forward to using that. I wanted to get all of the bottles, but I knew if I came home with 4 bottles of barbecue sauce, I might have been yelled at by my wife, and she would have probably made me drink them all, which would have been okay too. But it was a great time. I am looking forward to the next Maker's Mart and market in the fall. And then I think we had a great meeting with CETUS today. I think there's bright future in what they're planning, and I'm looking forward to hopefully we can discuss how we can help them better budget wise, so that way we can get some of those plans off the ground. So,
okay. Thank you, Joe. Yes, the grand opening of our newest business, C-Mart, was awesome. I appreciate everybody that showed up. We had quite a bit of attendance, and This selection of varieties of food in there were very good. The couple items I picked up, my girls definitely enjoyed them. I will be at the Wildland Fire thing tomorrow night, to kick it off, and then I have another event afterwards. But I'm looking forward to that. Next Wednesday, Cedar Heights is doing their career day, so I will be there, representing council in the city, talking to them. SCA today, we had the South Caucus because we needed to vote in a new member to replace Deshaun Quinn, who went to King County, and we chose Tukwila Mayor Thomas McLeod as the newest SCA board member. There was two great candidates, both from Tukwila, so couldn't have gone wrong with either one of them. Maker's Market was great. I think I spent more this year than I did last holiday. But yeah, every booth was very good to deal with. Memorial Day, Tahoma Cemetery is holding an event. I will be there speaking. I will coordinate and I'll send you the times, Krista, so that you can let council know if they wish to attend for that. And then in June 24th is AWC that Tuesday night. I will be in Kennewick that night. I don't think we have much on the agenda for that night. So it's up to council if they would like to go ahead and hold the meeting or if they want to cancel it, or we can decide that at our next council meeting. But that's, yeah, I won't be able to log on because I'll still be traveling because I won't be leaving here until 3. And so I probably won't get there till after 7. And I'm not going to log on at that time after driving. So it's up to council which if they'd like to proceed. Or actually, first off, is there anybody else that's going to
I can't
go?
Memorial,
Okay.
because I can't stay.
Anybody else thinking of going to AWC? Okay. No, okay. So does council want to cancel or they want to think about it and bring it up back at next meeting?
If council decides to cancel the meeting, it would be really helpful to know tonight as we're planning blue sheets and putting agendas together.
Do we have anything
Yeah.
important planned for that particular evening?
I don't think there's anything specific on it right now, but there are things in the pipeline, so we need to know.
Is one of
What
the
we-
things how we should have cake at every meeting?
It's not, but.
Okay, well then we should
you
cancel
could-
if that's not gonna be on there.
So, well, question, if you're not here, but the rest of us are.
Sean would run it.
Sean
Yeah,
would
good,
run it.
Sean's run it.
Unless Sean like
that we wanna
wants
have a
to
meeting
leave too,
without
that's,
you, but-
then there's another
I'm
problem.
just
But-
asking if, since there's,
Yeah,
at this point, there's not much on that agenda, so that's why I'm
Oh,
asking
right.
council
Mhm.
okay,
to help staff to make the decision so that if something does come up, they need a plan for it the first meeting
Yeah.
of June or the first meeting of July.
If we can condense it to either the first meeting of June or July, or
I mean, what does the rest of council prefer?
I mean, it just.
I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah, no,
Listen, Sean, are you okay if you don't have to run a meeting in June? Okay, if we're not gonna hurt your feelings.
I mean, if there's
Yeah.
not a
yeah,
lot
if it's
on
possible to
right
consolidate
now,
effectively.
fine.
Is that for
Canceling
anyone's
meetings, no.
feelings?
I don't like canceling meetings myself, but
Is it hard on staff if we do
Yeah.
that?
do what?
It's hard if we do it later.
No.
I think if we do it tonight, we'll be okay time wise. No, Public Works has some things, community development does.
Yeah, it's just a matter of the more we know, just know that the other
Sooner
pieces
the
usually
better.
just gets heavier on those other
Do we have a joint meeting that night or is that interview night? Is there anything planned on the 24th?
We'll pull that up and
I
see.
didn't
Yeah,
think
you know,
about
I'm
it.
not trying to, I wouldn't
It's my
try to put
anniversary.
anyone out of the conversation. I just. Optics canceling meetings. Did I get to scheduling?
We don't have any interviews scheduled for that
No, we
night.
don't
Okay.
have anything.
If we can remain effective. And this keeps us going smoothly on other meetings. I don't mind, however, if there's.
Another thing to think about is typically we cancel the second August meeting as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just
I guess given that,
Then we can keep it.
I'd probably prefer to go forward. with
Okay.
it.
Yeah,
To hold the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just make sure that if
Yeah.
there's anything you're interested in talking about, we can put it onto a different agenda so that
Well,
whoever can't.
I can keep in line with what's going to come up, because if there's something that I want to discuss,
Mhm.
can have that item moved.
Yeah,
But,
that's fine.
yeah, I have no problem with you guys running the meeting without me being here. I've done that before, so that's not the issue.
I mean, it still provides public comment, which is really important
Yeah.
right now, so. I think-
Yep. So you're in charge.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Sure.
You sound so happy.
Going in my head.
Okay, that is all I have. So, oh, no, one other thing. The joint meeting with CETUS and the Chamber Board, I thought was extremely good.
Mhm.
One thing I just was thinking about it when, I don't know if it was Sean or Beth brought something up, but on the wayfinding, I brought up about joining with Karma.
Mhm.
Something else is, geocaching is still
Mhm.
really popular.
Mhm.
Maybe there's a way to tie that in as well.
Yeah, it's a great way to program those kind of things. Yeah,
Okay,
good idea.
yeah, we came across geocaching. We weren't even geocaching. We found
Oh.
something, so.
To find the.
Okay,
Yeah.
I promise that's all I have. So second public comment, speakers will state their name, organization, and whether they're a Covington resident. Comments are directed to city council, not the audience or staff. Comments are to be related to city business. Comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to 4 minutes per speaker. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to address council? And is there anybody online wishing to address council? Please raise their hand. Seeing nobody raise their hand or approach the podium, we do not have an executive session. This council meeting is adjourned at 9:23.